Hello. It's just me today to talk about cancer detection and a few other things, but the cancer detection story is by far the largest. A test of 1,000 patients in the UK found a new test that can detect cancer a year before tumors form, and they claim they have not one false positive and not one false negative, with 500 people with cancer and 500 people without cancer. And this is a universal or at least broad spectrum detection technique that looks for cells that appear before the appearance of tumors, stem cells or something like that. And it can detect 25 types of cancer, including all the most prevalent and deadly varieties. So it sounds fantastic, and it's going to greatly expand into use all over the UK in hospitals and within a few years to the US. So this sounds amazing and wonderful. I hope it works out. Then there's a lot of stories about China. The TikTok hearings have caught some attention, and I saw an article on, let me see where it is, on HRW, whatever that is, but it's talking about TikTok's claim of independence from Beijing. And aside from TikTok, it points out something I've heard many places, which is that the Chinese Communist Party will forcibly disappear business executives. This is fairly common, not uncommon, and it has increased under the President Xi Jinping. Some executives are never heard of again. Some return for work as if nothing has happened. Some go to prison, and some mysteriously die while incarcerated. And as Jack Ma being the most famous example, he was fixing, the owner of Alibaba, he was fixing to become a billionaire like Elon Musk, and the government stepped in and stopped him from issuing stock, and he vanished completely for a long time. Now he's been out of China for a year, and recently they've sort of apparently persuaded him to come back to China to try to reassure private sector operators, but it's not working. A private sector operator interviewed by Reuters said companies are hesitant to come back. Because Jack is already beaten. The state won, Jack lost control, power, and wealth, and it's not coming back. So it seems like a very hostile environment for people to do business in, with the government just squashing you arbitrarily. And really, it reminds me of Putin's Russia, where you can get rich as long as you play ball with Putin, but if you ever cross him, he'll push you out a window or poison your food and you're gone. And that just seems like, that is the way the world worked in medieval times. There were essentially no laws. The king would just arbitrarily slaughter people like crazy, and the nobles would just poison and kill each other. And so they're living up to historical precedents, but they're not living up to 20th century, 21st century precedents. It's like moving back in time to a more savage period of just jungle warfare. Anyway, as an example, China just arbitrarily detained the staff and shut down the diligence group, Mintz Group. Mintz is a worldwide company that does corporate due diligence. They investigate scandals and other issues to see if it's safe to invest places. And apparently they wanted to cover up something dirty in China. So the government just swooped in and arrested all their people and shut them down by force. And they didn't even notify the company with any official notice. And when they ask the officials, they say they don't even know what's going on, which is what I've heard a lot in China. People just do things and nobody you can reach will even talk to you. Reminds you of my college, another corrupt, dysfunctional government agency. And so the employees are being held incommunicado somewhere outside Beijing. So it's very hard for American companies to do business there. It sends a signal that Beijing wants foreign money and technology, but that it won't accept credible U.S. firms conducting due diligence on Chinese partners or the business environment. So there's a quote, red alert should be going off in all boardrooms now about risks in China. This reminds me of something I went to 20 or 30 years ago. I went to a meeting of the Chinese representative in America, coming to America, trying to convince American businesses to invest in China, saying, we won't just steal your stuff by nationalizing it the way Mao did. And so by those standards, I think what they're doing now is less outrageous and abusive. But anyway, this is why Donald Trump was so mad at China. And now the US government seems to be pretty much ending up where Donald Trump wanted him to on China, which reminds me of something I irritated my liberal friends with a lot. Donald Trump's policies were often not wrong. The problem is his insane selfishness and contempt for democracy. That's why, I'm always been a never Trumper. Not the actual effect of his administration was pretty much that of a normal Republican administration, which is not all bad, but it's extremely clear that he now is a cult leader. He is jumping right into violence at both feet, holding his rally at Waco, obviously wanting to portray himself as a messianic leader of a suicidal death cult of violent people, and making it very clear that he just wants his supporters to kill people who dare to prosecute him. Makes it clear he's far too dangerous to ever hold office again. His refusal to participate in the democratic system and his embrace of violence for political ends inside America, saying the number one enemy of Americans is other Americans, is insane. And that's why we'd be far better off with normal Republicans like Pence and such. Not that they have any chance. Anyway, Sanders doesn't seem to have much chance either. But he wouldn't, I think, cling to power like Trump and would therefore be a smaller risk. So CISA, the U.S. government agency, CISA, is now going to issue pre-ransomware notifications, which is a very interesting development. They are going to get tips from the cybersecurity research community, infrastructure providers, and cyber threat intelligence companies, and then they will warn you that we have detected indicators that you are about to experience a ransomware event, and you can take precautions to prevent it. And they've already done that in dozens of cases. So this is very interesting. I remember years ago, I gave a talk about white hat hacking where I would investigate security of companies from the outside and then try to alert them. And this is essentially useless because they completely ignore warnings from random people on the internet. And maybe they'd pay more attention if the CISA contacted them. And certainly if they're very large companies, they might possibly pay attention. So it may be a way to sort of launder these reports from the outside through an agency that can increase the possibility of someone listening. All right. There's I think it's a Hackaday article. Let me open this up and take a look about a malicious USB device. Yeah, Hackaday has therefore a proof of concept you can build, a malicious USB-C device, like the bad USB attacks we've seen before. But apparently, this is more of an issue because of the fact that USB-C docks are now common in shared workplaces. You go in with your laptop, like your Mac M1, and plug it into the dock, which does make sense. Now you've got a big monitor and all this stationary stuff that's good, but that dock could be used to attack your laptop, which people may not remember. And USB-C has access to the memory in your laptop, so it could find unencrypted important things in there. So it is a thing to be aware of. If you plug into somebody else's USB, you are trusting that person a lot. ARM is apparently in huge financial trouble. I didn't know this. ARM tried to sell to NVIDIA, but that was blocked by regulators. Their financial condition is apparently awful, and so they're hoping to have an IPO later this year, offering stock, and in order to make that possible, they're going to radically shake up their business model. They want to stop charging chip vendors to make ARM chips and instead charge device makers, especially smartphone makers, a fee based on the overall price of the final product. And they're talking about raising their fees by multiplying them by 3 or more. So this is very interesting. ARM is extremely popular on mobile devices and now on computers like my Mac M1. I wonder if people will try to move away from it as these fees go up. The logical place to move is RISC-V. I'm going to be presenting some ARM3 exploit development techniques at RSA and other conferences this summer, and I've been thinking about setting up RISC-V emulators, and we can start learning how to exploit RISC-V. That does seem like the next step. It certainly will be attractive to move to RISC, which is the open source, unlicensed hardware, if ARM becomes more and more expensive and irritating to use. There's a story, I think it's at the Washington Post. No, it's NPR, reporting on U.S. life expectancy that is really grim. The U.S. life expectancy is now 8 years less than comparable countries, and it continues to fall when other countries are now rising again after the pandemic. And so there's been a report from 10 years ago predicting all this correctly and analyzing what causes it. And the main causes for it are all the things you might guess: teen pregnancy, drug overdoses, HIV, car crashes, injuries, and violence, especially gun violence. They say the prevalence of guns in America alone causes 2 years of our life expectancy loss. One possible good news is the life expectancy of people over 75 is higher in America, because I think the people over 75 are no longer taking drugs and engaging in gun violence very much, but what they are doing is getting our excellent medical care for old people with diseases, and have this available to them more, I think. But, we have a lot of problems here, and quite preventable. But, we just had another mass shooting, and it's painfully obvious that we have no intention of ever doing anything about it. I don't suppose I'll live long enough to see us do anything about the guns here, which are now more than one gun per person, which is completely insane. And the rest of the world can see that. But it's a religious principle in America that the more guns you have, the more better life is, even though it kills people. Anyway, I just found out about ChatGPT for YouTube, which I used, tried it on one of my lectures. You take a YouTube video, like a hacking conference talk that's an hour long. I almost never watch those because it's too much bother for me to sit for an hour through something. And what this does is YouTube will already create a transcript. It just repeats every word the person says, and this will then run it through ChatGPT, which will create a nice summary, like, a few bulleted points, like half a page of text. So that's what I want. I always want printed word and not videos, because I'm not willing to sit through a video, which is 99% garbage I don't care about, to find the one fact of interest to me. I want a printed text so I can skim down and find the interesting spot, and that's what this will do. So I think I'll use this a lot. You have to put it in Chrome. It doesn't run correctly in Brave, but then you just open a YouTube video and a bar just appears on the side with a summary of what that video is going to cover. It's very nice. I recommend checking it out. This is the first ChatGPT that I'm probably really going to use for some valuable purpose. And there's going to be a ton of it. It's going to be in everything. Within a year, almost everything you do on your computer is going to have an AI assistant helping you do it that will actually be valuable and that you'll want to use. So, all right, that's it for this one. And I'll be back on Friday. I may be alone again, but I'll be here.